I think the mindset is so important. I think the good thing is you've ramped it up. And that is something that's lacking in Kenpo today. I'm going to break it down into three areas. There is street fighting. There is what I call sport/commercial karate. And then there's Hollywood. Okay. Now, and I'll relate and I'll give you a quick what I'm talking about. Street is real deal. John and I are walking down the street, folks, and some idiot comes out with a knife. This is not for sport. This is real deal. What do we do? Well, Parker would say, hey, get the hell, run, leave. If you leave, then you won. But if you have to get in it, as he would say, get all the way in. And he meant business. And his was not, he did not do 20,000 moves. He did effective moves that got him out. And that means if he disabled you or maimed you or killed you in a matter of seconds, no doubt. And that's and that was it. It was real, man. You know, it was flashy. He didn't do all the jumping stuff. Now, commercial sport karate, I understand. That's where people go in to a school and they want to train, but they just want to be there. They don't realize that that's just a training area, because once they leave the sanctuary of the school or the car or the home, it's real. We're back to number one. Okay. So we're playing and they go in there and they're more interested in rank and belt and trophies and stuff. And you see that. And there's a very big commercial part of martial arts. And both are influenced by one thing, which is on the other end. And don't get me wrong, there's some really great, talented people in the commercial karate world. Okay. They're very
absolutely.
There's a lot of people that are not in the martial arts that are badass too. Okay. And that's what you got to be concerned with. The final one is Hollywood. And when I say Hollywood, I'm talking you watch a Bruce Lee movie, or you watch the John Wick series, or you watch somebody. This is my version of karate, and I'm going to teach you something. I'm more interested when you see that. It's nice, but they've worked at that. They've choreographed that. They've made sure that the compliant opponent, like you're talking, this is not compliant. This is controlled, but he's going to give you some pressure testing, as my good friend Marty Zaninovich would say. And the deal on it, John, is that it's nice to watch entertainment, but let's get to real big deal. Okay. Why are you doing it? That's what I want to know. And I think you addressed that issue. You've shared it with us of the selection of the martial arts that you're involved with and the purpose of why you do it. And then you help the student understand. So that's what my take from watching you so far. And I applaud that, because I think we lack that. I think that's the temperature. When Parker was here, the intent factor was here. It was here. It was business. It's diminished. And I think it's because we've watched too much of the Hollywood, and we go, we'll just go and play. And I call it the Icarus mindset. Make you smile. You know what I'm talking about. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I tell you, I wish that John Wick's skill was attainable in a human being. You know, like John Wick is what I aspire to as a martial artist. Too bad it'll never happen. But yeah, and the thing with like, as far as like when it comes to self-defense, the things that's difference between self-defense and, well, the difference between, let's talk first about like hardcore combat sports, you know, K1, UFC. I mean, that's real fighting. Like if you can fight in the octagon, you can probably defend yourself against most people purely on attitude and physicality. So that pressure really benefits those martial artists. Like they can really work under that kind of pressure, where you don't get that in more like contact stuff. So that's one difference, right, between a self-defense application is pressure and attitude. Because if we're going to go and we're going to spar and we're going to do sport type moves and we're going to do them, you know, maybe moderately, but we're not going to pressure each other, then there's something kind of missing in the training. So the real self-defense stuff, a lot of it has to do with fear and uncontrollable environment. Like I love combat sports. I really do. And I think that the major difference between combat sports and self-defense would be the unpredictable environment. Even what you see could not be what's actually happening. You could see a person, a potential threat right in front of you, and somebody's running up on you from behind, and you're so focused to the front that you don't see them coming up behind you. Or you get into it, you're defending yourself, and you're doing pretty good, and you step off of a curb and you break your ankle. Now you're on the ground. The pressure is a big part of it. The fear is a big part of it. Understanding you might get hit, right? And above all, that your goal in a self-defense situation, I'll get back. Your goal in a self-defense situation is to live and keep your body in working condition. So if you don't get, beaten half to death or strangled or stabbed, you've successfully defended yourself. Now, you get attacked by like 5 people and all you get's a broken nose. That's a win. That's a win, because you could get killed by that many people. So the difference between like I would say, like, real deal martial arts, what I try to teach is, can the student block? Can they kick? Can they move? And can they handle pressure? So even just learning a technique, we get the mitts out, we get different targets out, and we try to hit each other. Like we do swinging pendulum. We put on some shin pads so nobody gets their arm broken, but we throw a full blast roundhouse kick. You have to move up the circle and block it. And most people, the first time they practice that with me, they go right on their heels, because they've never had anybody try to really kick them with that technique. So they couldn't feel that initial move that you need to stop that kick. You don't get that if we're looking at like kind of martial arts movies sort of training, where you don't try to hit me hard. Like if you watch sometimes in a Kenpo line technique, the person will just do this, and the other person's going off and they're hitting them 20, 30 times. Well, the person just stands there. What if we had the partner, like they do their punch, and maybe you do your parry, and then you go to try to do like 5 swords, and the person doesn't even try to hit you back. They try to defend themselves, and you're throwing all your swords, but none of your swords are landing. Not because you lack skill, but the environment just doesn't support it. So we need to have the accuracy, but we need to also have a non-compliant opponent who isn't giving up, and not just them trying to hit you back, but they're trying to defend themselves. You might be able to punch and kick really hard, but you're not hitting the targets, and you're in this confusing scramble, right, of limbs and fists and everything. If I train martial arts where my partner doesn't give me any kind of an attack, I'm not going to psychologically be able to handle. I don't know how I'd be able to handle it psychologically for the first time in a self-defense situation where you're probably already pretty scared, which is a normal thing to be. But there's a difference between being like healthy, afraid of something, and being paralyzed by fear. So if we can get an average person, not like a tough person with a strong attitude, they will succeed at any martial art they do, just on attitude and physicality. But what about the average person, right? Not very mentally or physically tough, not really athletic or anything, and they're concerned for their safety. So
that's important. I think that's important what you're saying. I address it differently a little bit. I'm in the same. I think the terminology is a little bit different. I would say to learn to be controlled apprehension, not fear. Fear is the enemy. You should not fear it. It should fear you. Is
that's
what
a good term.
Yeah, and the point is that when I would teach in Pasadena, and this is more sophisticated. So this is something Parkerism, but we walk around in military background. Do you have any military background, sir?
No.
Okay. In the military, they use the color code. Okay. Most people walk around in white, which means they're zombies. They're looking at their phone. They're not paying attention. They're not looking at the environment they're in. That's how they get involved in accidents or get robbed or whatever. But zoning in the 0, when you're white, it should be almost when you're sleeping. And that should be, otherwise you should be in a yellow code, which means I'm aware of what's going on around me. It doesn't mean I'm in a ready state to fight. My attitude, it should be controlled relaxation. So when you're there, when you're sitting there in your fighting stance, it should be relaxed so that you're not tense, so that you can respond more fluid. And And I would bet that you probably use the hands up, but they're also in for front of your center line. And this looks like I'm not going to do anything to the common people. But and I turn this to this, it becomes a different that game on. And that doesn't happen
Yeah.
to you twice.
As soon as you
Okay.
close your hands, it changes.
It automatically you're setting that that's like because you could also if I stand off and square off on you like this, it's like okay, he's ready to fight. I want to deceive him. I want to use my mindset. Parker said, if I can beat you with my mind, that's the greatest lesson. That is the ultimate for him because he knew how proficient he would be. There's an interview I do with Edmund that I'll be talking about, releasing some of it very shortly. It's about 3 or 4 parts. And the point I'm sharing with you is that when it comes to the color codes, when you're happy or content, it starts to go green to jovial to uncontrollable, just laughter. Okay. That's the positive side of green. So positive, double positive, triple positive. The other side, you get to scare, fear, that's negative. That's red. Okay. But that means, oh, please don't hurt me. I'm there. And you may even go into a fetal position. All right. Like, and that's you got to break that mindset. The second one is anger. Now, the difference between anger and fear is that anger is a positive negative. When I'm angry, man, I'm aggressive, like a dog barking. He's like, oh, he's ready to go at you. Okay. You just don't want to go to rage where you're out of control. So again, so what I'm saying, and the only way you'll ever be in a controlled situation is through training with somebody like you to harbor that idea that, listen, we take that emotion and we remove that part. We skip that. You're not going to be scared. If you're that scared, leave because you know ultimately something terrible is going to happen. But if it comes down to brass tacks and you have no exit strategy, which most people don't look for obscurity, they don't look around what's behind me. They think there's a way out. There may not be, or there may be something there that may cause them trouble, like a hole or some kind of impediment. Parker told me once, hey, Paul, you might have to just go right through them. That's your only way out. And that's what you do. So
absolutely.
His biggest comment was this: self-defense does not mean they get to throw the first punch. Self-defense is not that. First attempt to hurt me, then I defend myself. Attitude. He's coming at you in aggressive stuff. You don't wait till he throws the punch. You don't wait till he grabs you. But in your situation, you train in them because the beginner to the intermediate has to understand that transition of this is not we're working through a drill, but we're training our mind first, and then we're let our body to be able to sort of I'm aware, I prepare myself, and like a mechanical object, I pull the trigger and it happens quickly. And I think that's what you're doing. And I applaud that, sir, because we are lacking in that area. Okay?
I look at it as my responsibility first and foremost is for the people that come to me to learn to defend themselves. Like that's my responsibility. And I take it very seriously. So I have to train people like individuals. Some people are more mentally tough than others. Some people are more physically imposing than others. But either way, every person has to be approached as an individual. And just quickly on the commercial martial arts, we talk about overly commercial martial arts. What you end up losing is that individual teaching, where the teacher in the school, maybe you have 2, maybe you have 3. They know where every student is at. They know where every student, like I can only speak for myself. I know every single student that trains here. I know every single person. I know where everyone is in their training and what they need. And I think that's important. I don't own the school where I teach, but I think it's important for me as one of the kind of leader instructors is to really know everybody and make sure that they're really well taken care of. So if I have a student who comes in and this person, isn't like a person who just handle themselves anyway, I have so much work cut out for me. I have to build their confidence and their courage. I got to build their fortitude. I got to teach them how to take a shot. right? I mean, blocking punches. I mean, fists and arms are hard. So if we're just practicing blocking all the time, but there's no weight or power behind those attacks, the student might not understand what makes a block work, right? Angle, power, speed, point of origin, motion. Like that's the most important thing. So you take every student, you find out what they need, what are they lacking, but also what do they have? What do they already have? And you try to put that all together, and you take the Kenpo system, the techniques and the concepts and the principles, and you really tailor them to the individual. So that individual has proficiency. Like by the time you get a yellow belt from me, you should be able to throw a dangerously hard roundhouse kick. I'm talking about for your first belt, we want to see power and for that level. And this is all just for the students' benefit, because I mean, all belts aside, these people may have to defend themselves someday.
Maybe that same night you taught them.
Yeah,
that might come up. How many times have you had a student come, "You won't believe this, sir. Somebody did something and it worked."
I got a good story if you want me to tell it real quick.
Yes.
One of our students, here's a prime example. Older guy, I think he might have sparred 5 times, period, right? Older guy. He was overseas and somebody tried to steal his laptop. And he said, "No, I'm not giving my laptop." The attacker reached behind his back and he had a knife in his back pocket. Well, what my student did was he kicked the guy in the groin. And when the guy bent over, he cracked him in the head with a knife hand. He did delayed sword off of an attempt to grab a knife. Now, same guy, and this is true, my honor as a gentleman. Same guy, about a year and a half later, he gets carjacked in Georgia. And the guy gets right on top of him. That's how I teach he did obscure wing by the numbers. So he hits the guy in the solar plexus, cracks him in the groin, hits him with the back elbow. The guy gets hit and he falls. And as he's falling, he breaks his collarbone when he falls. So the attacker is laying there in the parking lot. Like I went to a grappling camp one time with Dr. G, and one of my guys broke his collarbone. They had to take him out on an amp. Breaking your collarbone is one of the most painful things. Yeah, really this guy broke his collarbone. He couldn't even get up. He's laying on the ground while the police are coming. The guy can't even get up and run away. And here's a guy, you look at this guy, right? You look at this guy, you put this guy in a tournament, he might have gotten his head kicked off. But somebody was trying to take his property, take his car, maybe you don't know. And he was able to defend himself in a situation where, some good black belts might just panic.
Well, we have to differentiate between the rank and the ability. Yeah. Just because you receive a certificate doesn't mean you're going to be successful. Yeah, that means you just passed a curriculum of that learning institute. And there are different levels. My attitude is that we need to return to a higher level of intent of making sure that quality comes out of that school, and that it's not about a rank, it's about their lives. And that's going to happen with people like yourself. I applaud you for all this. Any final thoughts, sir, before we close?
I don't know. I try not to talk too much, but that's not something I'm always successful. Well, if you're going to be a teacher, you can't exactly be at a loss for words most of the time. But now, I'm just very grateful to be asked to be here. I really love the Kenpo community. I love this martial art. I really do. I'm not trying to do anything, different. I'm not trying to change Kenpo. I don't have any huge criticisms of it. Not really. I think I have constructive criticisms, but that just really boils down not to the art, but to the way it's taught. To the way it's taught. So just sort of 2 things. I'm a professional martial arts instructor, and people come to me to learn self-defense. I have to make sure that I'm doing that and not just teaching them the moves of the system that I teach and them repeating it and then moving to the next level without any skill set. So, for example, for your yellow belt test, it's not really about the techniques. It's about your power and your accuracy. That's kind of what a yellow belt is. Power, can you throw a hard front kick? Can you throw a hard counter punch and hit the target? And the higher you go up, then it becomes more about timing. And then we get into stressful situations and we're practicing techniques and we're not lapel grabbing. We're grabbing skin when we go in there and shoving each other against the wall. And that's all designed to teach the people how to be calm and how to carry on. And I do mix other martial arts in there, but it's more like, instead of saying, oh, I'm blending Kenpo with Bondo and Joe Louis systems and Jiu-Jitsu, it's not that. I'm applying Kenpo principles to these other martial arts. I'm not trying to sandwich anything in because Kenpo principles, and you know this better than I, Kenpo principles are interchangeable.
Sure they are.
Yeah. So category 6 Kenpo is just the teaching method. It sounds cool too, category 6 Kenpo. But no, it's not its own style or anything like that. It's just a teaching method. It's a way of relating the movements to the students. But this has to begin, though, with the mindset that the student is an individual. This is an individual. This is not the same as the person who joined yesterday. And as a teacher, they're going to need a lot out of you. And the more students, as I get older, the number of students I want goes down. It goes down. I'd rather have 50. And what I mean by a good student is, I mean willing, dedicated, come to class and try. Rather have 50 of them than 250 who, it's fun. I like it. And most of my students are adults. 60 to 65% of the school is adults. I teach adults, 30 adults in a class a night.
I think the thing that I really like that from this conversation, and I appreciate this, sir, is that you focused on the practicality, the physicality of what's the intent and what are we doing here? And this is what really gets down. We can talk in theory all we want. And I've covered that many times on discussions with other seniors on principles and concepts, theories, what Mr. Parker was trying to achieve with his writings. Earlier, you talked about the distance. That's something that sub-level 4, which would be Dr. Ron Chappelle. He talks about out of range, in range, penetration, contact, manipulation. You'll get into the other aspect when you listen to in the Paxton arts, martial arts of Ed Parker Jr. You'll hear that. And the complexity of this is that there's room for everybody. But the number one factor that I'm taking from you, which is so important, is that there's practicality here. You're gonna learn that this is to save your life. We're not just gonna walk you through and you walk around because it seems like everybody's more interested in the participation award rather than the participation.
Well, that's a good way of putting it. That's a really good way of putting it. Yeah. The training,
anyway, I want to thank you, sir.
The training's the point.
I want to thank you, John Van Cleve. Yeah. Before we go, I want you to tell everybody your website so they can go and look at you and maybe explore more of that with you.
Yeah, it's category 6, spelled out SIX, Kenpo.com. And I have some online courses there that are fundamentals courses. They're really stances, maneuvers, kicks, blocks. And because there's a demand for online training, but there's only so much you can do online. So if anybody is a beginner or just wants to go over just fundamentals, there's a lot of material on that site. But there are courses out there that are good for beginners just to get you started and teach. So if people want to train online, let's just make it good.
Absolutely.
Yes, category 6 Kenpo.com.
Thank you so much, Senior.
Thanks for asking.
Professor John Van Cleve. It's a truly honor to have you here on the Kenpo Minute. With no further ado, sir, full salute.
Oh, salute to you, Master Casey. Thanks for asking me.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
So thank you for watching the Kenpo Minute. We hope you enjoy it, and please come back and visit us again. Thank you very much.